He controlled everything. The year is 210 BC, somewhere in the deserts of northern China. A procession moves slowly across the sand, dozens of wagons, thousands of soldiers. And somewhere in the middle of that convoy, the smell of rotting fish. This was the most powerful empire on earth, built to last 10,000 generations. But the man sitting in that wagon was already dead. They just couldn't let anyone know. So they packed the convoy with barrels of salted fish. To hide the smell, they forged his final decree, put a puppet on the throne, kept moving, as if nothing had changed, because the moment people found out, everything would collapse instantly. There was no version of this that survived. He had controlled everything: the army, the laws, the roads, even the width of every axle, on every cart, across the entire empire. But he couldn't control this. And that one thing he couldn't control was about to delete everything he built. This is not a story about a tyrant. This is not a story about war. This is a story about a system, so perfectly designed that it could only ever end one way. He didn't just build an empire. He built a trap. And he built it so well that even he couldn't escape it. Before Qin, China wasn't one empire. It was 6 major states, locked in 500 years of constant war. But here's the part most people miss. They weren't losing because they were weak. They were losing because their systems were outdated completely. Most states were still running an old system. Feudal structure, power inherited, loyalty assumed. If you were born noble, you stayed noble. If you were born a farmer, you stayed a farmer. It worked in stable times, but in a survival competition, it failed every single time. Qin ran a different experiment. It was called legalism. And the core idea was brutal in its simplicity. People don't need to be good. They just need to be useful. In most states, power was inherited. In Qin, power was earned or executed. No exceptions. No negotiations. No mercy. A farmer who grew more grain got promoted. A soldier who took an enemy head got land. A noble who failed to deliver got replaced. Within 2 generations, Qin had the most efficient war machine in the ancient world. Not because its people were braver, because the system made courage the only rational choice. Legalism didn't inspire people. It just made every other option worse. This is the first thing you need to understand. Qin didn't win because it was better. It won because it was optimized. There's a difference, and that difference is what kills it in the end. Ying Zheng was born in the wrong place. His father was a Qin prince, but Ying Zheng didn't grow up in Qin. He grew up in Han, the capital of the enemy state of Zhao, as a hostage. Think about what that means. A child in a foreign city, surrounded by people who would benefit from his death, watching his father get traded back to Qin and leave without him. He didn't grow up in a palace. He grew up learning that loyalty doesn't exist. Only incentives do. At 13, he became king of Qin, in theory. In practice, a merchant named Labu Wei ran everything. Then his mother's lover tried to stage a coup. Then Lai Bu became a liability and was exiled. By the time Ying Zheng had actual power, he had watched 3 different people try to take it from him. All of them people he was supposed to trust. All of them. So he made a decision, not a dramatic one, not a conscious one, the kind that forms slowly like scar tissue. He decided that the system would always be more reliable than the people inside it, that rules would always be more trustworthy than loyalty, that the only way to build something permanent was to make it impossible to corrupt. This was the beginning of his decision trap, not a mistake, not a flaw, a completely rational response to everything he had experienced. The problem wasn't the decision. The problem was what it made impossible. Later, 221 BC, he wins. China is unified, all of it. For the first time in 500 years, one man controlled everything, from the Yellow River to the South China Sea. And then he got to work. He standardized the writing system, the currency, weights and measures, the width of roads, and the width of every axle on every cart in the empire, so that the wheel ruts would match. Everywhere. From the outside, this looks like genius. And it was from the inside. It looks like something else. He didn't redesign the system. He forced the entire world to fit it. 500 years of different cultures, different systems, different ways of organizing human life, compressed into a single format. Overnight, every one of these decisions was rational. Every one of them made the empire stronger, and every one of them made the system harder to change, more rigid, more brittle, more dependent on one thing working perfectly: the man at the top. To understand why the Qin Empire collapsed, you need to understand two men, not as villains, as architects. The first built the trap. The second made sure no one could leave. Qin Shi Huang, the designer. His need for control wasn't madness, it was memory. Every time he trusted a person, that person became a threat. His regent, his mother's lover, his own ministers. So he stopped trusting people and started trusting rules. Sounds efficient. It was. Until it wasn't. Legalism's incentive structure had one mode: execute and reward. No feedback loop, no space for error. Which meant the rational move for every minister was simple. Tell the emperor what he wants to hear. Don't report problems, manage them quietly. Don't push back, comply, and survive. The result? Qin Shi Huang became the most powerful man in the world, and the most informationally isolated. He knew everything about what was happening, and almost nothing about what was actually happening. That's how the system blinded him, and he had no way to see it. In his final years, he became obsessed with immortality, sent thousands searching for the elixir of eternal life. Most historians call this delusion. I call it self-awareness. He knew what no one would tell him. Without him, there was nothing holding the system together. No succession plan, no redundancy, no off switch. He wasn't searching for immortality because he feared death. He was searching for it because he knew what his death would trigger. He had built a machine with no operator manual, and he was the only one who knew how to run it. Li Shi, the executor. Now meet the second architect, Li Shi, the most brilliant legal mind of his generation. The man who took legalism from philosophy to policy, who designed the bureaucratic infrastructure of the entire empire. Li Shi understood the system better than almost anyone, which is why what he did next is so revealing. When Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC, Li Shi had a choice. He could have supported the legitimate heir, Fu Su, reasonable, balanced, open to reform, a man who might have loosened the system, given it flexibility, maybe even let it survive. Instead, Li Shi allied with the eunuch Zhao Gao, forged the emperor's final decree, had Fusu executed, put the incompetent Hu Hai on the throne. Because under Hu Hai, Li Shi calculated he would keep his position. Under Fusu, he wasn't sure. He chose personal survival over systemic survival. Inside a system that made personal survival the only rational goal, the man who understood the system best made the decision that guaranteed its destruction. Because the system gave him no other rational option, he helped build the cage. In the end, it locked him inside too. 3 years later, Zhao Gao had Li Shi arrested, accused of treason, executed by the very legal system Li Shi himself had designed. The trap doesn't care who built it. (213 BC), a state banquet. Scholars and ministers gathered. One official stood up and said something dangerous. He suggested the empire should follow the Zhou model. Grant land to the emperor's sons. Create a feudal buffer system. Like the old days. For most rulers, this would be a policy debate. For Qin Shi Huang, it was a system error. Legalism had no category for this, no input field for reform the structure, no protocol for what if the current system is wrong. The only available response: eliminate the variable. Li Shi drafted the order. All books not related to Qin history, medicine, agriculture, or divination, burn them. All scholars who continued to discuss the old ways, execute them. History records 460 scholars, buried alive, thousands of texts, gone forever. From the outside, it looked like a decision. From the inside, there was no choice left. The system had one response to ideological conflict: deletion. He didn't choose to burn the books. The system chose for him. That's what a decision trap looks like. From the inside. (206 BC), Qin collapses. The man who replaces it, Liu Bang, had no formal education, no military training, no grand philosophy. A minor village official who ended up leading a rebellion. And yet Han lasted 400 years. Same land, same people, different operating system. In the early years, Han adopted Huang Lao philosophy. Minimal intervention, reduce taxes, forgive debts, stop the endless construction projects. The government's job wasn't to control everything. It was to get out of the way. Then under Emperor Wu, Han incorporated Confucianism into the state structure, not as ideology, as engineering. Confucian ethics gave officials a value system outside of pure state interest, which meant for the first time, a minister could say, "This policy is wrong," and have a framework to stand on. A feedback layer, a correction mechanism, something legalism never had. Han kept the administrative bones of Qin, the bureaucracy, the standardized systems, the centralized control, but wrapped them in something Qin never had: flexibility, the ability to be wrong and survive it. Qin built a system that couldn't bend. Han built one that could. The question was never which system was better. The question was which system could survive being wrong. (209 BC), two men named Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, former conscript laborers, were marching to a military assignment. They got delayed by flooding. Under Qin law, being late was punishable by death, so they had nothing to lose. They raised a flag and said, "Enough." Within months, the empire was on fire. The easy answer: they brought down the empire. The real answer, by the time anyone saw it failing, It was already too late to fix. Qin Shi Huang died with no succession plan. Li Shi's forgery put a puppet on the throne. Zhao Gao eliminated every competent minister who might have helped. Local governors had no autonomy to respond, because autonomy had been deleted from the system. The army was stretched across the empire, building walls and roads. Because the system had no off-switch for expansion, Hu Hai wasn't the cause. He was the symptom. Zhao Gao wasn't the cause. He was the symptom. The rebellion wasn't the cause. It was the trigger. The empire didn't collapse. It ran out of runway, exactly as designed. So what is a decision trap? It's not making a bad decision. Bad decisions can be reversed. A decision trap is making a decision that removes your ability to decide again. That's what makes it dangerous. Qin Shi Huang didn't make one catastrophic mistake. He made a series of optimal decisions that each narrowed the options for the next until there were no options left. Only execution. Li Shi understood this better than anyone, and still couldn't escape it, because the trap doesn't require ignorance. It only requires that every rational choice points in the same direction, toward the same end. The most dangerous decision is the one that removes your ability to decide again. Qin lasted 15 years. The system it created lasted 2,000. The emperor is gone. The trap is still running. History isn't chaos. It's a system. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Han inherited the bones of Qin, kept the bureaucracy, kept the roads, kept the standardization, but changed the operating system and survived 400 years. Next time, we look at exactly what they changed and why the same trap almost got them too. History has patterns, and we just decoded it. This was Historithm. See you in the next video.